Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be predicting the UEFA Champions League, one of the most iconic tournaments in football. I'll predict who wins it, the top scorer, most assists, everything. The tournament, of course, is already underway and there have been some major shocks that have already happened, so I'll take them into consideration and I'll try to make what I think is a reasonable prediction. But at the end of the day, this is football and anything can happen. This series, once again, is brought to you by Kitbag. Do go and check out the link below to shop with them. Right, without further ado, let's get into the preview. Okay, first up, let's talk about who makes it out of each group. Group A, I think, is seemingly one of the easier groups to predict. Two of Europe's super teams, PSG and Man City, they're paired with RB Leipzig and Club Brugge. I do think that both PSG and Man City will qualify as their quality is just far too superior with Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, De Bruyne, Foden. It'll be too much for the other two teams in the group to handle. Club Brugge qualifying for the Europa League, it may be a bit of a surprise, and I do admit I think Leipzig are the better team, but they have had a poor start compared to the Belgian team, and I do think that this will hinder them. Ultimately, it will lead to them not making it out of the group. Now let's talk about Group B, one of the most interesting groups this year, I think. It's a group full of European giants and success. I think Liverpool will finish top as they've been extremely dominant in the opening two games, and I expect that to continue throughout all the matches. I'd say second place is definitely slightly harder to predict. Atletico have that defensive solidity and stubbornness almost, and it makes them one of the most difficult teams to break down in Europe. On the other hand, AC Milan are on the up. I think Pioli has nailed the perfect balance between youth and experience, and it makes them a very mature team. I think signing Giroud, Ibrahimovic, Simone Kjær, whilst also mixing with Brahim Diaz, Tonali and Rafael Leao. Unfortunately for the Rossoneri, I do think that defensive ability and previous European experience of Atletico will just help them over the line and it will get them through the knockouts. Okay, moving on to Group C. I think this is one of the most fun groups. I'm pretty confident that Ajax and Dortmund will be the ones to make it out of this group. Dortmund just have that X factor in Haaland, Bellingham, whilst also having a very decent defence in Hummels and Rafael Guerreiro. Meanwhile, I feel that Ajax have one of the most exciting managers in Europe in Erik ten Hag, and they've had a pretty decent rebuild ever since that 2018-2019 team that was just raided by Europe's elite. I feel now they look like a fun team again. Ten Hag has got Sebastian Haller, former West Ham striker, firing on all cylinders. He's also got that winger Antony, who's been playing really, really well. And Ten Hag has also been bringing in youth like Ryan Gravenberch from the academy into the first team. Unfortunately, I don't think Besiktas have enough to compete with those two, and they'll go on to the Europa League. Right, time to talk about Group D. I think this is the most surprising group this year by a country mile. Sheriff Tiraspol, they have a squad value of somewhere around 12 to 13 million pounds. They played out one of the biggest upsets in Champions League history, really, by beating 13-time champions Real Madrid at home. And they beat them 2-1 thanks to that last-minute rocket from Sebastian Till, and the football world just went crazy for them. I think they played extremely well, but I do think that the best will rise up to the top. Inter and Real, they'll both qualify as they just have too many stars not to qualify. However, I do think that Sheriff will outplay Shakhtar and they'll finish above them and go to the Europa League, which is still an amazing achievement for a club the size of Sheriff. Okay, now moving on to Group E. What may be a surprise to some of you in this group, but to me it's very plausible. Hear me out. Firstly, I do think that Bayern will go through comfortably and they will be actually one of the best teams in the tournament. So they should have no trouble getting out of this group. But now for the big shock. I think Benfica will finish ahead of Barcelona and the Blaugrana will have to play Europa League. My reason for this is the way Benfica outplayed them in the second group game. Benfica battered them 3-0 and Barcelona didn't even have a single shot on target. I think their team without Messi is just very mediocre, and I'd put them last in the group had Dynamo Kiev not been there, because unfortunately I think this is one of the worst Barca teams we've ever seen. Right, next up, Group F. I think this is a very tough group to call, as the top three teams could be in any position. So first off, let's start with Atalanta, known as one of the most attacking, free-flowing teams in Europe. I feel Atalanta have this very energetic and entertaining style of play, which it makes them really fun to watch, but it also makes them very volatile and inconsistent. They could beat, say, a Man United 2-0, but they could also lose 3-0 to United, which you don't get with a lot of teams. But even with this considered, I do think they'll finish first. I think their style of play will be just too much to handle. Man United, I think, will make it second place. Their performances have been nothing short of disgraceful, really. A shocking loss to Young Boys and then a draw to Villarreal, who they lost to in the Europa League final. I think a team with this much quality should be top of the group, and the fact that they're bottom, it is quite shocking. But unfortunately for Villarreal, I do think that they'll miss out on the second spot, and Man United will just clench it thanks to a certain number 7. Okay, let's move on to Group G. I think it's another tight group to call. I think all teams are on a similar level, but the two that stand out most to me are, of course, Sevilla and RB Salzburg. I think Karim Adeyemi of Salzburg, he lit up the Champions League in his first 2 games already. He's won 4 penalties in just 2 games, which really showcases their attacking style of play. Sevilla made it to the round of 16 last year and then just narrowly missed out against Dortmund with Haaland. You know, that's nothing to be ashamed of. Lille will go to the Europa League, where I think they'll actually go really far, and I think 2 players to look out for are Angel Gomez and Jonathan David. Lastly, Group H. I expect Chelsea and Juventus to both qualify quite comfortably from this group, and I reckon it will actually be a fight between each other for first and second, of which I do expect Chelsea to come out on top. Chelsea, of course, did lose to Bianconeri 1-0 in Turin in the last match, but Chelsea are definitely the more organised of the two, and they won't have another slip-up. On the other hand, I think Juventus will have one slip-up, probably against Zenit, which will ultimately cost them that first place. Now let's move on to the top 4. I think the winners of the Champions League this season will be Bayern Munich. I think their attack is definitely one of the best, if not the best in Europe, with Lewandowski, Gnabry, Leroy Sané finally hitting into form and Müller just behind them. It's one of the most lethal attacks in Europe. I just don't think teams will be able to deal with how good they're going to be. And ultimately, this will be the reason that they'll be crowned the champions of Europe. Second place, I'm going for Chelsea. Yes, they are extremely organised in defence, but I do think they'll find it extremely hard to deal with all 4 of those elite Bayern attackers at once. And unfortunately for them, I don't think they'll be as clinical in the final, even with the signing of Lukaku, especially against Manuel Neuer. I think they'll lose narrowly, but they'll be going back to Stamford Bridge with the silver medal. Third and fourth place, I'm going for PSG and Liverpool. I think these 2 super teams, they'll bow out in the semi-finals of the Champions League. PSG, I feel, will crumble with the amount of pressure and expectations being placed on them, and that won't be eased by their manager. I think at times Pochettino, he's not particularly known for doing well under high pressure scenarios. I think even with all the superstars they have, I'm not entirely convinced it'll be enough for European success. Liverpool as well, I think, on the other hand, I don't think they'll go through because of how shaky they've been in defence, against those big teams. Van Dijk returning, it has reassured the defence massively, but he doesn't look fully back to himself. Rather, he's up to like 80% of his ability. I think because of this, Liverpool will be let down due to a defensive error rather than a lack of goals. Now let's talk about the Champions League awards. Top goal scorer, I think, will be Robert Lewandowski. Nothing new here. Actually, if you want to see a whole video dedicated to Lewandowski, then just click the link above. Right, I think he'll win this award as Bayern will go deep into the tournament, and him being that focal point at such impressive levels of consistency over the past decade. I think considering all the talent he has around him to help him succeed, I reckon that European Golden Boot winner will also be the top scorer of the Champions League this year. Right, now let's talk about the top assister, and I'm going for Joshua Kimmich. I think playing in the same team as Lewandowski, I feel it's going to be very easy for him to rack up a lot of assists. Kimmich is always very involved in the play with Munich, and last year he got 4 assists, which put him in the top 3 for assists in last year's Champions League. He plays a really big role in the attacking phase and from deep with his long balls over the top, and I think these will just all add up over time and he'll come out top of the pile. Moving on to most clean sheets, I'm going for Chelsea. I think their organisation will be, the key reason they win this award. They kept the most clean sheets last year, actually, in the Champions League, and that was actually when Tuchel came in, which was January. That's an immense impact from Tuchel, and I do think this superb run will just carry on and they'll end up having the best defence in Europe. The best goalkeeper, I think it's going to be Manuel Neuer. Neuer won't be, in the best defence, but he will win the best keeper, I think. Bayern do concede a lot of chances due to their aggressive style of play, but Neuer is the perfect fit for that. He can play that modern sweeper role, but he's also extremely reliable in those high-stake, high-pressure moments as well, and I think he'll play a big part in them going far because of just how well he plays in those big games, and that's why I'm going to give him the Best Keeper of the Season award. Right, well that's it. My prediction of how I think this year's UEFA Champions League will pan out. But a gentle reminder that this is football and anything can happen. What are your thoughts on my big prediction? Do comment below and do let me know. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe for more football content, and remember to check out the link below to shop on Kitbag as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!